Okay, welcome to lesson 28. Let's continue with for loops. So in the last lesson, we discussed for loop and range function. Now let's talk about some details about range function. So as you know, it can take three parameters: lower limit, upper limit, and step size. For I in range. Now here we have two parameters, x and y. So this one here is inclusive and this one here is exclusive. For I in range, let's say 1, 5, and then print I. So what is the output here? 1, 2, 3, 4. What about step size? By default, step size is 1. Now let's add step size for I in range. So this time we need three parameters, x, y, let's say k, step size. Let me write it here. For I in range 5, 15, 2, print I. So what is the output? 5. So this time we have step size. So we have to take 2 steps, not 1. So we take 2 steps and then 5 becomes 7. 2 steps, 9. So again, 2 steps, 11. 2 steps, 13. So wait here. If we say, okay, let's take 2 more steps, it becomes 15. But this number here is exclusive. So you shouldn't consider 15. So this is the output. So the last value is 13. So the value of k can be either positive or negative integer. Positive or negative. Let's have another example. For I in range -5, 0, 1, and print I. So let's have a line here starting from -5. So here we have -5. And here we have 0. Step size is 1, so it means we have to go to the right. We have to go forward. So it makes sense, right? So -5, 1 step, 1 step. So somewhere here, because 0 is not included. So basically step size should match this interval here. So what is the output? -5. So 1 step. Now we are here. -4. So 1 step. We are here. -3. one step, it becomes -2. Another one, -1. So wait here. If you say one more step, it means 0. But as you know, this one is exclusive. So that's enough. This is our output. For I in range 1, -1, print I. So what do you think? What about step size? Step size is 1, the default value. So from 1 to -1. So here we have 1, -1. Let's have 0 here. So is it possible to reach this part? No, you can't. Because here, step size equals 1. So it means go to the right, go forward, go to this side. So 1 becomes 2. But here it says from 1 to -1. So what is the output here? No output. So step size must match the interval. Let's have another example. For I in range 1, -1, so the same as the previous example, but this time let's define another value for step size. I'm gonna say -1, and let's print I. Let me change the color here. So we have starting point, which is 1, and -1 here. So is it possible to go to the left? Or let's say, is it possible to go backward? Yes. And the reason is we have -1. So it means go to the left or go backward. So what is the output here? So first we have 1. Now 1 step to the left. Now we have 0. So 1 step to the left, it becomes -1. So this is our upper limit. So as you know, this number is exclusive. So this is enough, just 1 and 0. Let's have one more example. For I in range 0, 1, print I. So let's have 0 here and 1 here. What about step size? Step size is 1, the default value. So take 1 step, or go to the right, or go forward. So here we print 0. What about 1? No, you can't print 1 because this number here is exclusive. So that was all for range function. Now let's discuss something about while loop. But this time, not normal while loop, I'm going to discuss nested while loop. So when you have a loop, a while loop inside another while loop. Counter equals 1. Counter 2 equals 1. So let's have a while loop here. Counter less than 3. So I can remove counter 2 from here. Let me write it inside while loop. Counter 2 equals 1. Now we have another while loop, which is located inside another while loop. So while loop inside another while loop. So we have a nested structure. So counter 2 less than 3. Now let's print counter 1, or you can do some other actions. And here, counter 2 plus equal 1 to avoid infinite loops. And here, out of the inner while loop, I want to increase the value of counter 1 or counter. Counter plus equal 1. Now here, let me demonstrate the indentation here. This one, and this indentation here, this indentation here. And the last one for counter plus equal 1. So of course, all of them are aligned here. So whatever you see here belongs to the outer while loop. And whatever you see here belongs to this inner while loop. So using this method, you do not get confused. So you can see what's happening. Now what about the output? So what's happening here? We have counter less than 3. I just write C equals 1. 1 less than 3. It is true. Now we have C2 equals 1. Now we are here. While counter 2 less than 3. It is true. Print counter 1. We print 1. We increase the value of counter 2. Counter 2 becomes 2. Now we go back to the inner while loop. So we check the condition. Counter 2 less than 3. 2 less than 3. It is true. We print counter 1, which is 1. Now counter 2 becomes 3. So again, we go back to inner while loop. Counter 2 less than 3. 3 is not less than 3. So we don't do anything here. Now we come here. Counter plus equal 1. So counter becomes 2. Now we go back to outer while loop. While counter less than 3. 2 less than 3. Yes, this is true. Now let's enter this part here. So counter 2 equals 1. So here we have reassignment. We change the value of counter 2. Counter 2 becomes 1. So while counter 2 less than 3, counter 2 is 1, 1 less than 3. Yes, it is true, we print counter 1, which is 2. Now let's print 2. Counter 2 plus equal 1, counter 2 becomes 2. We go back to while loop, 2 less than 3. Yes, this is true. We print counter 1, which is 2. Now counter 2 plus equal 1, it becomes 3. You go back to inner while loop. 3 is not less than 3, so we don't enter this part. Now we come here. Counter becomes 3. We go back to outer while loop. 3 less than 3, no. So we don't enter this part. Now we are done, and this is the output. So is it possible to have more than one level? Because here we have one level. Of course, you can have more than one level. You can have another while loop here within this while loop. And this one is within this one. So we don't have any limit to number of levels. So let's finish the lesson here. Next time, we will start talking about nested lists and nested for loops. So as usual, take care and bye-bye.